Welcome, Carol, to the Creating Inner Harmony program. Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Carol, I know for a lot of years you were in a professional capacity. You led a transition home for domestic abuse survivors, and you've worked with those survivors professionally in that role, and you've also been a coach. And recently, you've had a situation arise where you've had to put a lot of those skills in place for yourself. Can you share with us what's been going on?
Indeed. In January of 2022, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And you know, I have to tell you, Steve, that cancer runs in the women in our family for sure. And I thought I was prepared that this was going to happen at some point in my life, but I was not. And I'm thankful for the skills that I have because I sure needed them.
And what did you get? Well, you went through cancer treatment, and what was the kind of the initial thought or thoughts that you had as you were going into this process?
Fear is the first thing, of course, but it's not just fear of what's going to happen. It's fear of the unknown. We think we know. We hear that cancer is so prevalent, and we think we know, but we don't know. And so it was. I don't know what's going to happen. I am afraid of what's going to happen, and fear is the biggest for sure. The shock was immediate, and thank goodness I have a supportive family. But the fear was the biggest thing, and the waiting. My goodness, a whole lot of having cancer is waiting for results, waiting for things to happen, waiting for treatment, and that's hard.
Indeed, it is. And I know as I mentioned, prior to you dealing with this, you had developed an array of alternative healing skills. Can you share a little bit about what skills you developed and how they played a role in your as you navigated through the treatment?
Absolutely. I mean, the first technique I learned that helped me deal with stress, and as you know, I learned this to help the women that I work with in the shelter. I learned tapping, or emotional freedom technique, and to help with, certainly with the fear, the emotions, but I don't think I knew that it was going to help me with the physical aspects of cancer treatment as well. And it did. So EFT was a huge part of what I did right through from beginning until now, and still continue to do so. You and I have had a conversation once before about Ho'oponopono. And it is, I don't know that I knew that was going to be important to me, but it was. And I used it. And I don't know how this is going to sound to other people. This is for me. For me, Ho'oponopono talks about, I'm sorry, forgive me, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. And I have a feeling that at first it was not conscious. I think I was apologizing to my body for what I was putting it through. I really do. And it was very helpful. Very, very helpful. And the other thing, which is part of tapping, but it's mine, and I developed this a couple of years ago in helping my grandchildren through some things, and I developed what I call shine tapping. And so this is, I'll show you if that's all right. This is my shiny diamond. This one's pink. I have many colors, but this is the diamond. This is the shine we're all born with, Steve. We're all born all shiny and new, and then things happen in our lives that cover up our shine, and we forget that we have it, and we live in a black place. And so this shine is always there. It's always there, but we forget and we lose it. So I tap right here, and I remind myself I got shine until I can feel the shine. and I feel it. And during treatment, I actually got to where I could feel it spreading throughout my body, which is far better than thinking about the black cancer that I thought was spreading throughout my body. So those are the ones I used primarily.
Where can, because of the framing, I'm not sure the place where you tap, can you share exactly where that is?
Absolutely. It's right in the middle of your chest.
Okay.
And you're tapping on the thymus gland. And in Eastern traditions, this is where your chi is, or your energy center. So we're waking it up. And I imagine it waking up and cracking all that black until we can see the shine. And then it just starts spreading. And I have to tell you, when I was laying on the radiation table, that's what I could see. I could actually see a shining body laying on the radiation table. It was really, really helpful for me.
Shine tapping, EFT tapping, Ho'oponopono. So each of those had their place as you navigated through your treatment, or were they sort of, did you combine them? How did you use the various methods?
And that's a really good question, because without question, tapping for me is and always has been, since the day I learned it, has been my primary go-to and still is. But sometimes I actually combine them. I tap and I say, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. And it brings it all together. Now, as I say, I used shine tapping on the radiation table, because there's a whole lot of laying there with time to think. And on top of that, there's some breathing techniques, and I found out that if I tap, it just takes up the time perfectly, and I don't even know it's happening. So that was lovely. So I used shine tapping there. In waiting with the doctors, Ho'oponopono was very helpful. It was. And as I say, I truly believe that it was my way of saying to my body, I'm really sorry you're having to go through this, but we're trying to deal with it. We're trying to make it better. So I did switch them up, but primarily tapping is my big one. And now I've been a year and a half in treatment, which is a long time. I think we're used to watching movies and television shows where we think the doctor gives you a diagnosis, and then you have surgery, and then you're all better. I've been a year and a half, which is a long time. So there's been some dark times, and tapping helped me through that. It didn't just help me through that. It brought me shine. That's the easiest way to say it. It did. One of my friends said to me the other day, you're finished and now it's time to enjoy your shine. I thought, well, that's good news. Yeah, a nice way to put it.
And indeed, you are shining. And there's an energy glow that's coming from you. And it's an amazing healing experience, I know, to go through that, because we've certainly had our share of that in our family as well. So you've used various methods. You've combined those methods. Tapping is, for the most part, your primary go-to method, and then Ho'oponopono was a good companion while waiting for the endless hours to see the doctors and all of that goes along with that. How else? Well, first of all, do you think that the methods, whatever, all of those methods combined or any one or combination, helped you heal physically?
I do. Because it helps with pain, definitely. So that's a very practical experience. You know exactly whether or not it's helping. When you're sitting there and you're hurting, and then you think, okay, I feel a little bit better. Because we've all heard people say, yeah, where the head goes, the body follows. And so if you can tap into, so that your head is like, I can do this. And you can, and I can do this. So I used it absolutely for that. For healing, I'm going to be as honest as I know how to be here. Yeah, I've read many things, and I think we all have, about a positive attitude is important when you're fighting cancer. And I don't know if we have control over what cancer does in our body. I don't. But I know that, as I say, when I tap into my shine and I imagine shine running through my body, that's better than in the first month where I thought about was this black cancer running through my body. So that has to be helping the physical of what's happening in my body. I told my my oncologist, and she said, as far as I'm concerned, if it's getting you through, it's good stuff. So that's not necessarily an endorsement, but she understood that it was helping.
I think we're seeing more and more awareness by oncologists and medical doctors, not enough, but certainly more, more about the importance of the mind-body connection and how we can use meditation, we can use tapping, we can use whatever complementary methods are helpful, both for our emotional well-being as well as our physical well-being, as you experienced. So if you had another patient or cancer survivor who sat down in front of you and said, Carol, I'm just beginning my journey. What advice do you have for me?
I would tell them that there are techniques to help, and they're easily learned. They're so easily learned, so that you are empowered. You will be empowered once you've practiced. Tapping is easy. Tapping is just so easy. And so, as I say, you can learn it. You can learn an easy way to tap in one day, and you then know you have control over how your head is reacting. And I can't tell you how important that's been, because, Steve, I'll tell you the fear, and I consider myself a positive person, someone who's practiced it, who's learned how to be positive, who's learned how to bring myself back into positivity. And yet overcoming the fear of cancer, I find terrifying. And now I'm finished treatment. So this is when the world says to me, you should be celebrating. And instead, part of my head says, what if it comes back? How do I know if it comes back? Will I be aware if it comes back? And I don't see the doctor every week now to tell me that it's not coming back. So this is so important. And if you're someone who's beginning your journey, to put this technique into your toolbox is so helpful. So very helpful. Right down to, I don't think of myself as a vain person. You have no idea the courage it's taken for me about the whole hair thing. This has just been so frightening. And yet I said to myself, it doesn't define me. And I tap on it. It doesn't define me. It doesn't say who I am. I can do this. This isn't the worst I've gone through, for sure. And so here we are. Hair or no hair. So it is all about, it's about empowerment and in giving yourself the abilities to take charge, because you do need to.
I think that's a key point. You can be a victim or you can be the captain of the ship. To use a metaphor, the ship still will be buffeted by waves, wind, storms, but the captain can make the adjustments needed to navigate through those storms. And I think EFT, Ho'oponopono, and other methods provide us with the tools to help that happen. So it's absolutely beautiful that you had those tools available to you, and I'm so glad that you used them and that they were helpful for you. So you shared guidance that you would provide to others. How about to caregivers? If I'm a caregiver for someone either just diagnosed or through their some part through their journey of treatment, what would you share with the caregivers that they could be of help, not only for the person that they are caring for, but for themselves?
We just had a conversation about this in our house last night with my husband, because he's just been so incredibly supportive. He truly has. And I don't know how I would have done this without him. And I said to him, I think one of the biggest things you've done for me is you just let me go with it. Now, I'll tell you a quick story. My grandson is 11. And my grandson, about a year ago, he and I talked about tapping, and he has adopted tapping. It's become his go-to for when he's afraid or when he's not feeling well. And so he gets it, as he says. And I was having a particularly bad day a few months ago during chemo. And Matthew came in, that's my grandson, and he said, Nana, tap on this, Nana. And I said, you're right, Matthew. You're absolutely right. And so it wasn't a case of telling me what to do. It was a case of just a little reminder that you have the skills. And so my husband would do the same thing on days when, because I won't pretend that I didn't have days where I was right on the edge. I called it standing at the cliff of victimhood. Why me? Why did this have to happen to me? And he would say to me, you know how to do this. And he's right. Yes. And it was never nagging. It was never pushing. It was, you know how to do this. So it was a way of supporting that wouldn't have been possible if he too weren't aware of these techniques. So it doesn't even matter. This is funny. It doesn't matter if he practices it or if it's his go-to. It's supporting me in that he knows it's mine and that it'll work for me. And for caregivers, truly, it's so easy to get worn down. It's easy to get as scared and frightened as the patient. And you and I both know, Steve, that there's nothing better than tapping to find your inner energy and your inner strength. And that can be helpful. So helpful.
And it's a beautiful thing that you've got such a supportive family, your grandchild, your husband, and I'm sure others in your family. And that is so important. I believe it was Michelle Obama's book. Anyway, one of the politicians, It Takes a Village. And it really takes a family. And caregivers, both within the family and people, friends and people who care about you, all of those people matter. And one of the challenges that can happen when someone gets cancer is, unfortunately, friends seem to be abandoning, hard to find. And the ones that are truly there to help you are your true friends. And that's just kind of a reality that a fair number of cancer survivors have to deal with. So,
I actually wrote a blog page, Steve, about It Takes a Village. It's absolutely true. And I didn't tell very many people in the beginning. I'm not sure why. It was a very tight circle of people that I told. And several of the ones that I chose to tell in the beginning were the ones I never heard from again.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost as if it's contagious.
Exactly. Yeah, which of course it isn't. But
no.
Well, Carol, it's been an absolute delight to hear you share your story and to give support to others who will see this in YouTube or hear it on the podcast. If people would like to be in touch with you, either for this or for coaching in other aspects, domestic abuse, um, partner violence, and so forth, how can they do that? How can they reach you?
Yeah, my website, which is primarily at this point about my cancer journey, is carolwiggins.com, CarolWiggins.com. And it follows my cancer journey, but there's also an opportunity to contact me through there. And I'd be happy to hear from people.
Well, I do thank you. And I would encourage anyone who needs guidance from someone who has walked that journey to contact Carol, because I've known Carol for many years. I know her heart. She is one of the most giving, generous people that I have had the pleasure to know. And Carol, thank you so much. So with that, I will say thank you and go about the rest of your day and tap and just enjoy the beautiful fall weather. And I know where you are, maybe it's a little chillier here, or it certainly will be soon. So blessings to you, and thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Steve.